Welcome to Module 6. In this module, we address two of the most persistent and practically important challenges in industrial operations: the alarm flood problem and the early detection of process anomalies. The alarm priority bands on the right of this slide represent the visual reality of a control room during an upset event. When hundreds of alarms are activating simultaneously, operators face an impossible cognitive challenge. They cannot process the information fast enough to identify which alarms are causally related, which is the root event, and what the correct response is. In these situations, critical warnings can be missed entirely, not because operators are not paying attention, but because the volume of information exceeds human cognitive capacity. The three statistics at the bottom of this slide represent the opportunity. 50 to 70% alarm rate reduction is achievable with artificial intelligence, not by suppressing real problems, but by eliminating the nuisance alarms that make up the majority of what most plants generate. The 2+ weeks of earlier anomaly detection compared to traditional threshold-based approaches means the difference between a planned maintenance intervention and a forced emergency shutdown. This module covers two distinct but deeply related operational challenges, and it is important to understand how they relate before we dive in. Anomaly detection is about finding unusual process behavior early, before it has escalated to the point where a configured alarm threshold is crossed. Think of it as a second line of awareness that operates upstream of the alarm system. A machine learning anomaly detection model might notice that the vibration signature of a pump has changed subtly, or that the correlation between two temperature sensors has broken down in a way that suggests developing fouling, or that a process is drifting toward a region of operating space associated with previous quality failures. And it can surface this information to operators while there is still time for a measured, planned response. Intelligent alarm management is about the alarm system itself, specifically the problem that most industrial alarm systems generate far more alarms than operators can meaningfully process. Studies consistently find that 70 to 80% of alarms in a typical facility are nuisance alarms. They fire, but require no operator action. When every 10th alarm is real and the rest are noise, operators rationally begin to ignore them, which means the critical alarms that do require action can be missed. Artificial intelligence attacks both problems. It detects anomalies earlier, reducing the frequency of escalations that generate alarms. And it rationalizes the alarm system itself, helping distinguish which alarm states are actionable in a given operating context and which are not. There are 5 learning objectives for this module, each addressing a different dimension of the industrial cybersecurity and artificial intelligence relationship. Objective 1 grounds us in the industrial control system threat landscape specifically. Industrial control system cybersecurity is not simply enterprise information technology security applied to a different environment. The systems are different, the consequences of failures are different, the constraints on defenders are different, and the attacker's methods are specifically adapted to industrial targets. Objective 2 covers the defensive application of artificial intelligence, specifically how machine learning models are trained to detect malicious behavior in the network traffic, device commands, and system events that make up an industrial environment. Objective 3 introduces the attack surface that artificial intelligence itself creates. When you deploy a machine learning model in an industrial environment, you are adding a new component that has its own vulnerabilities, and some of those vulnerabilities have no equivalent in traditional systems. Objective 4 goes deep on adversarial artificial intelligence, the research field studying how machine learning models can be fooled, corrupted, or manipulated by crafted inputs. This sounds academic until you consider the implications of a fooled anomaly detection model in a power station or a water treatment facility. Objective 5 connects all of this to the standards and frameworks that provide operational guidance for industrial security professionals managing these systems. To understand why industrial cybersecurity is such a distinct and challenging discipline, we need to start by recognizing how fundamentally different the defender's position is in an operational technology environment compared to a conventional corporate information technology environment. In enterprise information technology, security teams can patch systems on a regular schedule, can take servers offline for maintenance, can deploy endpoint security software that monitors all processes, and can accept that some security controls will introduce modest performance overhead. None of these assumptions hold in industrial control system environments. Consider patching alone. A programmable logic controller managing a chemical reactor may have not received a security update in 5 years, not because the operators are negligent, but because patching it requires taking the reactor offline, which requires a planned shutdown, which must be coordinated weeks in advance, and carries significant cost and operational risk. So, a known vulnerability sits unpatched because the cure is more disruptive than the perceived disease. The consequences of a successful attack also differ categorically. In an enterprise environment, a successful attack typically means data theft, financial loss, and reputational damage. In an industrial control system environment, a successful attack can cause explosions, chemical releases, power outages affecting millions of people, or contamination of drinking water. The physical world consequence is what makes industrial cybersecurity a matter of public safety, not just commercial risk. The 5 threat actor categories on the right represent the realistic threat picture. Nation-state actors represent the highest capability threat. They have patience, resources, and specific strategic objectives related to the critical infrastructure of adversary nations. We have documented cases of nation-state actors maintaining persistent access to industrial control system environments for years without detection. These 4 incidents are selected because each one represents a different category of attack against industrial control systems, and each one revealed something new about how these systems could be compromised. Stuxnet in 2010 was a watershed moment in industrial cybersecurity. Before Stuxnet, most security professionals believed that air-gapped industrial systems, systems with no internet connection, were essentially immune to cyber attack. Stuxnet demonstrated that a sophisticated attacker could use removable storage media and carefully designed malware to reach isolated industrial systems, manipulate their operation in physically destructive ways, and do so while hiding the attack from operators whose monitoring screens showed normal readings. The malware was specifically engineered to target the exact programmable logic controller models used in Iranian centrifuge facilities, a level of operational specificity that was unprecedented. The Ukraine power grid attacks in 2015 and 2016 demonstrated that nation-state actors had the capability and the will to use cyber attacks to cause power outages in civilian populations. The 2016 attack was particularly sophisticated, using malware specifically designed to manipulate high-voltage substation protection relay systems, equipment that protects the physical grid from damage. The Triton attack on a Saudi Arabian petrochemical facility in 2017 crossed a line that the security community had long feared. The attackers specifically targeted the safety systems, the independent protective layer designed to prevent catastrophic industrial accidents. Had the attack succeeded, the facility's safety system would have been disabled, leaving workers and the surrounding community exposed to uncontrolled chemical process risks. Colonial Pipeline in 2021 demonstrated a different pathway. The operational pipeline was not directly attacked. The attackers compromised the company's enterprise information technology network with ransomware, and the company shut down the operational technology pipeline as a precaution. This highlights that enterprise and operational technology cybersecurity are inseparable. The application of machine learning to operational technology network defense has become a mature and commercially viable field, driven by the recognition that traditional signature-based security tools are inadequate for industrial environments. Signature-based security tools, antivirus software, intrusion detection systems that look for known attack patterns, work by comparing observed behavior against a database of known malicious signatures. This approach has 2 fundamental problems in industrial environments. First, you cannot safely install endpoint security software on many industrial controllers because it might interfere with their real-time deterministic operation. Second, and more importantly, novel attacks like Stuxnet and the Ukraine power grid malware had no signatures in any database. They were entirely new. A system that can only detect known threats provides no protection against sophisticated adversaries developing custom attack tools. Machine learning-based anomaly detection solves this problem by inverting the question. Instead of asking whether this matches a known attack signature, it asks whether this deviates from the established pattern of normal behavior for this environment. An attacker can develop custom malware that avoids known signatures, but they cannot avoid generating network traffic and issuing commands that deviate from the established baseline of normal operation. The critical architectural point for all four capabilities shown here is passive monitoring. These systems are deployed as listeners. They receive copies of network traffic through taps or mirrored ports. They observe device behavior without interacting with devices directly. This zero-impact design is essential because any active probing of industrial control systems risks disrupting the very operations you are trying to protect. Let me walk through the operational technology network detection architecture in more detail, because the 5-step process on the left captures something important about how these systems are designed differently from traditional network security tools. The starting point is the network tap. Unlike enterprise security tools that might actively scan devices or inject probe traffic to discover assets, operational technology anomaly detection systems are entirely passive. A tap is a physical device that copies all network packets and forwards them to the detection engine, without interrupting or interacting with the original communications in any way. This is non-negotiable in industrial environments. If your security tool crashes a programmable logic controller, you have just caused the exact kind of outage you were trying to prevent. The asset discovery phase is often revelatory for organizations that have never had this visibility. Many industrial facilities genuinely do not know every device on their operational technology network, particularly older facilities where equipment has been added over decades without systematic documentation. The machine learning system's passive discovery process typically reveals devices that were unknown to the security team, firmware versions that are significantly out of date, and communication relationships that nobody had mapped. The 30-day baseline learning period is critical. During this time, the system is observing and recording which devices communicate with which others, using which protocols, sending which types of commands, at what times of day, in what sequences. This baseline becomes the definition of normal against which all future activity is compared. The right column shows what this approach catches that traditional signature-based tools would miss entirely. The most important is zero-day malware, completely novel attack tools with no known signature. Living off-the-land attacks, where adversaries use legitimate software in malicious ways, are equally invisible to signature-based tools, but highly visible to behavioral baselines. This slide covers material that is often absent from discussions of industrial artificial intelligence deployment, but which is essential for anyone responsible for the security of systems incorporating machine learning models. When you deploy an artificial intelligence system in an industrial environment, you are not only adding new capability, you are adding a new attack surface. The 5 attack vectors shown here are specific to machine learning systems and have no direct equivalent in traditional control system security. Data poisoning is particularly insidious because it occurs during training, before the model is ever deployed. If an attacker can influence the training dataset, perhaps by manipulating historical records in a historian database, or by introducing a compromised data source into the training pipeline, they can cause the model to learn incorrect patterns that will affect all future predictions. The corrupted model may pass all standard testing because the testing data comes from the same compromised dataset. Adversarial input attacks exploit a well-documented property of machine learning models. They can be fooled by carefully crafted inputs that look normal to human observers, but are specifically designed to confuse the model. Research has demonstrated that imperceptible changes to images can cause image classifiers to make wildly wrong predictions with high confidence. The same principle applies to sensor data. A sophisticated adversary could craft sensor readings that cause an anomaly detection model to report all normal, while a cyber attack is actively in progress. Supply chain attacks on machine learning components deserve specific attention because of the concentration risk they represent. If a widely used machine learning framework is compromised at its source, every industrial system using that framework may be affected simultaneously. Adversarial artificial intelligence is a research field that emerged from academic study of machine learning robustness, but has moved firmly into the domain of practical security concern as machine learning models are deployed in increasingly critical applications. The core insight of adversarial machine learning is that machine learning models, regardless of their architecture or training procedure, have regions of their input space where their predictions are unstable. Small, carefully chosen perturbations to an input can move it from a region where the model predicts correctly to a region where it predicts incorrectly, often with high confidence. These perturbations can be imperceptible to human observers. The three attack categories differ in when they occur relative to the machine learning lifecycle. Evasion attacks happen at inference time. The model is already deployed and the attacker is crafting inputs to fool it during operation. Poisoning attacks happen at training time. The attacker compromises the training data or process to embed vulnerabilities that will persist throughout the model's deployment lifetime. Model stealing can happen at any time through systematic querying of the deployed model. The first two implications on the right represent the most serious industrial consequences. An anomaly detection model that has been compromised by adversarial techniques could provide false assurance of security during an active attack. An operator looking at a dashboard showing green lights, all normal, while a sophisticated attacker is inside the operational technology network is in a worse position than an operator with no anomaly detection at all, because the false security leads them to reduce their vigilance and delay their response. The three defenses shown represent current best practice. Input distribution monitoring detects whether data being fed to a model looks like it came from the training distribution. Adversarial training explicitly includes adversarial examples in training to build robustness. Ensemble models require agreement between independently trained models, making simultaneous evasion of all of them much harder for an adversary. Knowing that artificial intelligence systems can be attacked is only half of what we need. The other half is understanding what we can actually do to reduce that risk in practice. The 6 security requirements on the left represent the minimum program for any organization deploying machine learning in an industrial context. The model inventory requirement mirrors what good security organizations already do with software assets and industrial device assets. If you do not know what machine learning models are deployed in your environment, where they are running, what data they consume, and what decisions they influence, you cannot protect them. The first step is always visibility. Training data integrity is an area that receives very little attention in current industrial cybersecurity programs, largely because organizations have not yet connected the protection of historian databases to the integrity of the machine learning models trained on them. The historian database needs to be treated as a security-critical asset, not merely an operational one. Unauthorized modification of historian data is not just a data quality problem. It is a potential attack on every model that uses that data. Model integrity monitoring is conceptually similar to file integrity monitoring that security teams use to detect malicious changes to critical system files. A machine learning model is simply a mathematical structure stored in a file. If that file changes unexpectedly between scheduled retraining cycles, something has gone wrong, and that something may be an attacker. The supply chain security requirements on the right address the component-level risks. A software bill of materials, a complete inventory of all the components, libraries, and dependencies in a software product, is now required by many regulatory frameworks for critical infrastructure software. The same requirement should extend to any artificial intelligence product deployed in industrial environments. This slide covers material that is often absent from discussions of industrial artificial intelligence deployment, but which is essential for anyone responsible for the security of systems incorporating machine learning models. When you deploy an artificial intelligence system in an industrial environment, you are not only adding new capability, you are adding a new attack surface. The 5 attack vectors shown here are specific to machine learning systems and have no direct equivalent in traditional control system security. Data poisoning is particularly insidious because it occurs during training, before the model is ever deployed. If an attacker can influence the training dataset, perhaps by manipulating historical records in a historian database, or by introducing a compromised data source into the training pipeline, they can cause the model to learn incorrect patterns that will affect all future predictions. The corrupted model may pass all standard testing because the testing data comes from the same compromised dataset. Adversarial input attacks exploit a well-documented property of machine learning models. They can be fooled by carefully crafted inputs that look normal to human observers, but are specifically designed to confuse the model. Research has demonstrated that imperceptible changes to images can cause image classifiers to make wildly wrong predictions with high confidence. The same principle applies to sensor data. A sophisticated adversary could craft sensor readings that cause an anomaly detection model to report all normal, while a cyberattack is actively in progress. Supply chain attacks on machine learning components deserve specific attention because of the concentration risk they represent. If a widely used machine learning framework is compromised at its source, every industrial system using that framework may be affected simultaneously. The central message of Module 7 is captured in that main statement, and I want to sit with it for a moment before we summarize. Artificial intelligence and industrial control system cybersecurity have a genuinely complex relationship. Unlike most topics in this course, where artificial intelligence is unambiguously beneficial and the main challenges are implementation and validation, cybersecurity presents a genuine tension. The same capability that makes artificial intelligence valuable as a defensive tool, its ability to detect patterns in complex, high-dimensional data, is also what makes artificial intelligence systems vulnerable to adversaries who understand how they work. An industrial security program that deploys artificial intelligence anomaly detection without also protecting the integrity of that artificial intelligence system has a gap in its defense. The most sophisticated adversaries attacking industrial control systems today are aware of the artificial intelligence tools being deployed against them, and they will target those tools if they are not adequately protected. The 4 principles at the bottom are the practical takeaways. Manage both sides of the artificial intelligence security coin. Treat training data as a critical security asset. Deploy all operational technology security tools passively. And apply the converging landscape of industrial control system and artificial intelligence standards together as a unified framework, not as separate compliance exercises. Let us close Module 7 and look forward to what comes next. We opened this module by establishing why industrial control system cybersecurity is categorically different from enterprise information technology security. The physical consequence profile, the patching constraints, the legacy equipment reality, and the expanded attack surface created by the connectivity that enables industrial artificial intelligence. We examined 4 major documented industrial cyber incidents, from the first publicly known cyberattack causing physical industrial damage, through the first attack targeting industrial safety systems, to the Colonial Pipeline incident that demonstrated how enterprise network compromises translate into operational technology risk even without a direct attack on control systems. We covered artificial intelligence as a defensive tool, focusing on the passive anomaly detection architecture that allows machine learning models to establish behavioral baselines for industrial networks and detect deviations, including sophisticated attacks with no known signatures, without disturbing the operational technology systems they are protecting. We then turn to the less comfortable topic of artificial intelligence as an attack vector. 5 categories of attacks that specifically target machine learning systems and that industrial security programs must now explicitly address. We closed with the practical security requirements for industrial artificial intelligence and the regulatory and standards frameworks that are converging to govern this space. Module 8 turns to a topic that is deeply enabling for everything we have discussed in this course: Digital twin technology. Digital twins provide the safe testing and training environments that allow industrial artificial intelligence systems to be validated rigorously before they ever touch a live plant.